Australia's population shrunk in the September quarter for the first time since World War One.
Yeah, look, no surprises with international borders shut. The population did shrink by 4,200 people. We did see some interesting things, though, across states. No surprises again. Victoria was the state that did shrink the most. They lost about 16,000 people. On the other hand, if we have a look at Queensland, it did grow by 8,000 people, and also WA. So other states did remain fairly stable. So lots happening at the moment in terms of population. Obviously, we still have closed international borders that will impact the level of population growth in certainly the December quarter and also the March quarter. Victoria's borders are obviously now open, and we are seeing economic growth rebounding in that state. So it is unlikely we'll continue to see such big outflows out of the state.
A couple of obvious areas where the population or lack of growth are affected. You see that in units around cities with students not coming in. Where else are we seeing the property market affected by the drop in population?
Yeah, look, it's surprisingly not impacting the new development sector as much as expected. A lot of people felt that, fewer people would mean fewer new homes, and longer term that's certainly the case. Obviously, we do need population growth to support the housing market and to support new homes. But what happened during the year was obviously home builder made a very big impact in terms of the level of development taking place. We did have very active first home buyers. There was also a lot of wealth effects that really drove activity. If we have a look at some of the places, we saw very high levels of new development and very expensive new homes being built. A lot of it was due to the fact that people really didn't spend much else on other things during the year.
And what about unemployment rates? We heard this week that they had a decline rate of 5.8%. Can you talk us through the states and territories and the unemployment rates in those regions?
Yeah, really good news on the unemployment rate. So it did come down. It was, and the September quarter data was also adjusted downwards. So some really good news there. When we have a look across states, again, the state that did the best was Queensland. They saw the biggest reduction in unemployment. Victoria also did well, and New South Wales, so they're both sitting at about the same level of unemployment rate. So some really good news there, and also good news on the job vacancy front. When we have a look at advertised jobs out there, they are well above where they were prior to COVID. So employment is really starting to come back, and the sectors that are being impacted are shrinking. I mean, no, hospitality and services was one of the main sectors impacted during the pandemic, but people are eating out again, restrictions are being eased, and that's really good news for that sector.
You're going to be a myth buster today, Nerida. There's often been a theory that properties will double in 10 years, and I suppose in some areas they more than double. In other areas, well, it doesn't happen at all.
Yeah, it's interesting having a look at long-term price growth. When we have a look at it at a capital city level, we can see that the areas that have gotten closest to doubling, haven't got quite there, are big capital cities, Sydney and Melbourne. Also regional New South Wales and regional Victoria have also seen some very, very strong price growth. On a suburb level, though, that's where things do become very interesting. We start to see some definite trends coming through. Obviously, places where we have new development, places like Tyab and Botanic Ridge on the Mornington Peninsula do have a lot of new homes, so that lifts the value of the housing stock. But then we've got places like Rosebery. I mean, Rosebery 10 years ago was still very much a semi-industrial suburb, but has really been lifted by its close proximity to the city and a lot of urban regeneration that's taken place over the 10-year time period.
And can you give us a quick update on the rental market across the country?
Yeah, look, rental market is improving. I mean, we're seeing some really good signs. I mean, we have been for quite some time seeing some really good signs in the housing market. We're seeing some really big upticks in rental growth. Many regional parts of Australia are heading to sort of 5-6% rental growth. So they, almost getting a little bit problematic for some of the smaller cities or smaller towns around Australia. The rental market in the unit market is still pretty weak. I mean, we are starting to see some good signs in price growth. So even in the areas where we are seeing some pretty big drops in rental levels, price growth is starting to move. So it really is a very different market when we have a look at what's happening with rental activity for these areas close to universities in particular. when we compare to how investors are looking at them now. There's a lot of investors that do seem to be looking at it as a counter-cyclical buy.
Nerida, thank you so much, and we will talk to you next Saturday.
Speak to you then.